Welcome back, all my haunted followers. I know I deserve everyone an explanation, but how about I share some spooky stories instead? Here are 5 cryptid stories from viewers who have asked me to share them. Please, don't forget to like and share at the bottom. And, as always, sit back and prepare to get scared. This happened to me but a few years ago while I was backpacking across Europe. I know not many believe in these types of things, but I assure you, neither did I. Well, up into my little encounter. Now, if anyone knows Europe, it's truly cast in folklore. I know that some of these tales are hard to believe, even explain. It was late 2010, and my friend and I flew over to Europe to experience backpacking across Europe. I truly do love it over there, and I wish I could move there in a heartbeat, even if I could. My friend and I had never done this before, so it was something I was looking forward to, except for staying in a hostel. That's something that you shouldn't experience. Anyways, we set out one early morning in a town called Cork. I do hope I spelled that right, of course. Ireland has so much amazing folklore, but one that sticks out in the tales of leprechauns. Some say they are nice, others make them out to be evil. I guess it really depends who you talk to, of course. But being a non-believer, I always thought them to be a myth or some type of fairy tale. It was early morning, and we set out traveling into the deep woods of Cork and the neighboring towns. I remember it being semi-drizzly out, but the weather was manageable. I do remember at no point did we experience any type of fog. It'll make sense in a second. As we were a mile in, fog appeared out of nowhere. I remember thinking how weird it was, but also thinking this weather must be normal for Ireland. It does rain a lot there. No offense. It got to a point that we couldn't even see 3 feet in front of us. We sat down on a rock to take a break and hoping that it would clear, but I remember looking into the fog, and something caught my eye. I kept looking, and what appeared to be shadows were rather dancing. Even my friends said how closely they resembled human figures. Now, this part I know is going to be hard to believe. All of a sudden, it became silent, like eerie silent. We didn't hear birds, no wind, not even rainfall. All of a sudden, a little person appeared out of nowhere. Please don't take offense to this. This person must have been no more than 3 feet tall, wearing what looked like a vintage-looking clothes. He was walking with a cane. He was definitely very old-looking, and carrying some type of sack. He just slowly walked by us, stopped for a second, and looked at us. The look just gave me chills. There was something awful with this person. He smiled and said, "It must be a nice day for a walk." And he just walked away. Now, this part, yet again, doesn't make sense. I'm sure that someone will have an explanation, but at the moment, I didn't. The fog followed him. When I'm saying it followed him, it followed him. It went from being that we couldn't see 3 feet in front of us, that the fog was automatically gone. Again, I know that some viewers will have some type of explanation. Please explain this. Of course, local townfolk laughed and said that we're making up when others told us about the leprechaun and their powers and their ability to change the weather. I don't know. Whatever that was, it's definitely made me a believer. I really appreciate you sharing this story. I want to tell my story, and hopefully you take this as a warning, or others take this as a warning. Remember that show Skinwalker Ranch, and how big it was? I noticed everyone was into it. Well, that was me. I got really into it. I wanted so badly to experience it, and didn't really know the dangers. Yet, I still wanted to prove that they existed. It was early 2016, and my friend and I wanted to experience this on our own. We know that our local woods carried on for miles and miles, and everyone had had their fair share of creepy experiences. I was only 15 at the time, yet I really wanted something to happen. Everyone called us crazy, but I wanted to prove them all wrong. One night, we took our bows and camera and set out into the woods. Before anyone says anything, I know this woods pretty well. Me and my dad bow hunted in there for years, so I'm pretty familiar with them. The sun had just started setting. It was almost dark, and we ventured into the trail they called Deer Track, something the locals called because it was a good spot to set up a tree hide and hunt deer. Now, I know the legend states that if you call out or wish to see them, they would appear. So, for the next couple hours, that's what we did. And of course, nothing happened. We spent nearly 4 hours in those woods with no evidence to provide us. No evidence to provide that they existed. Anyways, as days passed, I knocked the stories as just that. Made up stories. One night, I was laying in bed and starting to doze off. My room faced the woods, and then all of a sudden, as I started going into sleep, I heard my friend Lewis call me. At first, it was faint, but it was him. I got myself out of bed and looked out the window. I saw Lewis standing near a tree line. I quickly called out to him, stating that it was 12 a.m. He answered back by saying, "Dude, I found a skinwalker." I started getting dressed in excitement, but then stopped. I remember Lewis was on vacation with his family in Florida. A chill ran up my spine. I peeked out the window nervously. Lewis still standing there. I yelled to him, "Aren't you supposed to be on vacation?" The voice changed, and I mean changed. This creepy, deep, gravelly voice. The voice said, "No, man, come on. You have to see this." I shook my head. "No, you're not Lewis, and I'm not going with you." The voice grew angry and started yelling to get out here. It yelled in this ungodly voice. I was absolutely terrified. The only thing I could think to do was close my eyes and started praying to God for help. And just like that, it was gone. A few days later, Lois returned from his vacation. And here's the creepy part. He almost had the same experience. He told me while hiking with his father that he kept on hearing me, my voice, call out to him. He really just ignored it. I know this is so hard to believe. In fact, I doubt anyone hearing the story will believe me. But to this day, I still have nightmares. Nightmares of this thing calling out to me, calling me to the woods. I just ask that anyone listening to the story, don't go looking for something and regret it. I have always feared sharing this story, as it is not mine to share. Rather, it's my dad's. God rest his soul. Now, I know some of you will take the story and laugh, may even mock the story. That's fine. But I have to share this story with others, and I can make it out however you please. I promise you, my dad would never make this up. This happened to my dad back in the early 80s. He used to work on a fishing trawler. It was something that he did right out of high school, and back then the pay was decent enough, as he would go for almost a week or two. He always talked about how much he loved the ocean and the mysteries that it brought. He would share so many odd stories, but this one stuck out, and the way he spoke to me about the story was out of pure fear. It was 1982, and my father and 4 other crew members set out for a 2-day trip to Alaska. My father really loved that part of his life. He talked about it so much being on the boat and seeing the ocean and its sights. But he also spoke of the horrors that it would bring, from random storms to uncontrollable seas. One night, he told me a story that still sends chills up my spine. He spoke like it was yesterday, and he spoke out of it with pure fear. It was late at night. They had just reeled in a line of catches, and the tank was almost full. They decided that they could fit one more line in. The captain pushed him on to release one more net. So they did. The sea that night was silent, almost eerie silent. And as they cast the line, they heard a sound. At first, it sounded like a humming, thinking it was coming from the radio. They pushed on, but the sound grew louder. My dad spoke up and telling one of the men to turn off the radio. But no man on board had a radio. The humming got closer and was almost beautiful, almost like a catchy song. My dad at one point said that one of the men were growing confused, and they were all getting concerned. One of the men, John, yelled at the port side that there was a woman in the water. They all rushed to the port side to see what appeared to be a woman in the water. My dad yelled to the captain that there was a person overboard port side. The captain quickly adjusting the boat to travel to the port side. The closer they got, my dad mentioned how calm this woman was, how beautiful she was. As they got closer, they told the woman to hold on. My dad at this point in the story looked down, took a drink, and took a deep breath. One of the men yelled to the woman, "Hold on," and tossed her a ring buoy. But when it got to her, the woman just smiled and grinned. Her face went from being beautiful to almost menacing. As the man was holding the rope, she tugged on it, nearly pulling him in, and then she started laughing evilly. The man let go. She then ducked under the water, and she was gone. The whole crew was confused. The captain spoke up that, "Sirens, let's get out of here." My dad said that from that moment until port, that they could hear the faint music, that haunting, beautiful music. My dad shook his head. If John hadn't let that rope go, he would have gotten pulled in. This story still haunts me, even though my dad has passed. I'm sure that up until his death, that haunted him too. Listen, I don't believe in mermaids or anything like that, or sirens, or whatever you want to call them. Whatever my dad experienced, he didn't make it up. Okay, here it goes. And please take my story without judgment, because I still don't believe what happened to me. And I promise, I don't make up stories. This happened to me nearly 5 years ago in Massachusetts. I won't name the town as I still reside there, but anyone from Massachusetts will tell you about this forest. We have one forest in this town that is well known for those creatures, well, what people call puckawudgies. These creatures are known for their tricks and just being pure evil. I always went for a jog in the forest and have never had an issue. Of course, you hear the creepy stories, especially the story about a girl getting murdered there. But again, it was just folklore. And even if that was so many years ago, I mean, who would believe in stories about puckawudgies? It was early Sunday morning, as I always go for a jog in the morning. It was beautiful out. It was summer. Again, I've never had a creepy encounter. Well, maybe with some people. That's it. I always run with headphones, but sometimes I'll leave them home, and that day I did. I just like hearing the sounds of nature, hearing the birds chirp. No, all the cool stuff in nature. These woods do get deep, and sometimes if you're not careful, you can accidentally hit the wrong trail. As I was running, and wasn't really paying attention, I noticed to the left of me, maybe 20 to 30 feet in the woods, what appeared to be a figure dark behind a tree. Thinking it was no more than a deer, I kept going. About maybe half a mile, I saw it again. Only this time, I made out what appeared to be two figures, and I knew it was human shape. Thinking it was maybe kids messing with me, I just kept going. Now, I always carry a mace with me, tucked into my waistband. Being a 5 foot, 100-pound girl doesn't help, but I tried my best to ignore it. Then, I heard a twig snap to my left. I stopped and noticed a small human-like shape deep in the woods. I yelled out, "Hello, not funny." Now, this part gets really blurry and confusing. I turned to start running again, and I wasn't on the trail anymore. I was looking at deep forest. I was so confused, but thought maybe I had turned myself around. I turned back to go in the opposite direction, and then I heard someone call my name. It was faint, but the voice sounded gravelly and just creepy. I started to panic and started my way back to the opposite side of the trail. It dawned on me that the trail I had never seen before. I stopped and listened closely because the road is not too far off. I could hear cars. I started moving faster, listening closer and closer to the road. Then I heard it again. My name being called. Only this time. I know this sounds weird, so please don't make fun of me. I saw I saw a small person. The person had to be 2 feet tall, and I swear to this day, they had these pointy looking ears, and they just looked menacing. It started to chase me. I overheard something. I couldn't really make out what it was saying, but the two words that I got out of it was, "Get her." I've never run so fast in my life. I ended up running out of the woods and finding the road, but I was almost 2 miles away from where I had parked. I don't know what I experienced that day, but if the legends are true, stay out of those forests. You never want to share stories in fear to be criticized or mocked, but I have to put this story out there in hopes that someone will shed some light on what I experienced. It was early spring 2008. Myself, an avid hiker, I grew up in New Jersey, and of course, as kids and locals, you would hear the tales that everyone calls the Jersey Devil. If you don't know the story, I suggest you look it up. To cut it short, Mother Leeds had a 13th child. While giving birth, she screamed that she wished it was a devil, and thus the legend became what it is today. Now, of course, these are just stories, or as we were told. Anyways, that day, I wanted to do a little traveling around the Pine Barrens, where the story originated from. But again, as a non-believer, it was nothing more than a fairy tale. That day was amazing out. Not a cloud in the sky. I can remember like it was yesterday. It was early morning, I would say around 10 or so. I was by myself walking in the woods. Now, the house that Mother Leeds in supposedly gave birth was no more than a mile from the trail I was on. I'm sure locals will know the trail I'm talking about. And I was just in my own little world. All of a sudden, I was looking down the ground in my own head. I saw this shadow fly over me. It was huge. I looked up, thinking that it was nothing more than a large bird. So I carried on. I got a mile in when I heard this weird noise. I seriously can't give it a sound. It just sounded wrong. That's all I can say. I peered up, checking my surroundings. At first, didn't see anything. Then something caught my eyes on the trail ahead. At first, I thought it was a deer. Then I saw it had wings. At first, my mind couldn't wrap around this. Then I started laughing, thinking it was someone messing with me. I was in a costume, making a film. But then it took off. When I say took off, it flew straight up. No flapping, no nothing. Just straight up in the sky. It was there for no more than 5 seconds. And then it was gone. I still don't know what I saw that day. I think that my mind was still playing tricks on me. But hopefully someone can shed some light on this. Is this a real thing? Or am I going crazy? Well, all my haunted followers, thank you for tuning in. I truly enjoyed sharing those stories. I love stories of cryptids, especially skinwalkers. Those are my favorites. Next, I am looking for stories of UFOs. If you have one, please send one to the email below. And as always, please like and subscribe down at the bottom. Happy hauntings.